Hey everyone. I found something I can't explain. I don't even know why I'm writing this here. Maybe because I can't sleep, and maybe because saying it out loud would make it too real. But I need to put this somewhere, before I start convincing myself it didn't happen. It started in the airport last week, a regular Thursday night, gate B12, the air thick with burnt coffee and static. The flight was delayed again, first 30 minutes, then an hour. I was stuck between a coughing toddler and a man who kept muttering about the stock market. My laptop battery was dead, my phone at 10%, and I was just bored. So I opened June's frequent flyer app. It wasn't snooping. We share everything: passwords, streaming accounts, our tax login. I just wanted to check her miles before they expired. Something to do to make the time pass. That's all it was. The list came up: her usual trips, Denver, Santa Fe, Chicago. All normal. Then, near the bottom, one I didn't recognize. Flight 237. Destination, Halifax. Except the passenger name didn't say June Corwin. It said J.E. Corwin. I thought maybe it was an old booking from her before we married. But the birthday caught my eye: the same day, same month, same year. Weird. I tapped to open the archived manifest, and there it was, a blurry headshot attached to the booking. The photo looked like it had been taken years ago. Shoulder-length hair, a paler smile, but the face was hers. My wife. It was late, and my first thought was that it had to be a system glitch. I even laughed under my breath. But the more I stared at that grainy picture, the more the laugh curdled into something else: unease, maybe, or recognition I couldn't name. The flight details were still visible: Flight 237, March 2, 2020. Status: incident report filed. So I Googled it. And I swear, I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Flight 237 crashes over the Atlantic. No survivors. Memorial service held for all 189 passengers. I kept reading. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. There were names listed in a memorial article, rows of them, alphabetized. And then I saw it. Corwin, June Elise, age 31. My wife. I don't even remember breathing for a while. I just sat there, surrounded by people who had no idea that the woman waiting at home for me was apparently dead. That she'd died 5 years ago on a flight that never landed. My mind scrambled for explanations. Identity theft? A clerical error? Someone using her information? Maybe another woman who looked like her. Stranger things have happened, right? But then I remembered the birth date. The initials. The face. My phone buzzed in my hand, the boarding alert for my delayed flight. Without thinking, I took a screenshot of the manifest and sent it to her. No message, just the image. She saw it instantly. 3 typing bubbles appeared. Then vanished. Then appeared again. Finally, one message. Delete that. Now. No explanation. Just that. When I called her, she didn't pick up. Then another text came through, 5 words that made my skin crawl. Don't show anyone. Please. I stared at that message until my screen went dark. I didn't board my flight. I just sat there while the gate emptied, my coffee going cold, the announcement echoing through the terminal. Somewhere between disbelief and dread, one thought kept repeating in my head: not a question, not even a sentence, just a pulse of cold certainty that felt like someone whispering directly into my ear. She knows what I found. And whatever it is, she's scared of it. I got home to a house that felt like it had been holding its breath. One lamp on in the living room, not bright enough to claim the room, just enough to push back the dark. June was standing at the kitchen island in pajama pants and a hoodie, a damp halo around her hairline like she'd taken a shower and left it halfway. The citrus smell of her shampoo hung over everything, clean and a little medicinal. I told you to delete it, she said, before I could speak. Her voice wasn't angry. It was triage, steady, low, like a nurse stopping a stranger's bleeding. It's a mistake, I said, aiming for lightness and missing. Right? Tell me it's a mistake. She reached for my phone with the quiet confidence of someone who has done this before. Her fingers were quick, a pianist's. If it had only been the speed, I might have laughed. But her eyes, that was where the fracture showed. They were pinched at the corners, not confused so much as cornered, the way she looks when a hornet slips into the car and hurls itself against the windshield. June, I said, but the name felt suddenly like a guess. She opened the app, scrolled to the archive trip, and I watched her watching the pixelated version of herself. She didn't flinch at the photo. She flinched at the date. You took a screenshot, she said. Yes. And the cloud? Automatic. My voice sounded too loud in the soft house. It looked like you. Same birthday. Same. Delete it, she said, and swallowed. Please. June can be so gentle it makes my chest hurt. She remembers to buy my favorite toothpaste, switches the side of the bed when my shoulder acts up, leaves me the crust of her pie because she knows I like the caramelized edge. That woman was standing 3 feet away, asking me to erase something that had scared her enough to text me like a stranger. I wanted to be the husband who says okay, presses and holds, watches the proof dissolve. Instead I said, explain it to me. A flicker of something moved across her face, fear, yes, but also calculation. It's wrong, she said. The internet is wrong all the time. But the birthday. It's a common date. And the photo. Faces blur. Algorithms guess. It isn't me. She said the last thing with such flat certainty that if I were a better man, I would have let it land. Then why are you shaking? She looked down at her hands, as if they belonged to someone else. She tucked them into the sleeves of her hoodie. Because you won't delete it. The room tilted. We stood on either side of the island like diplomats from feuding countries, negotiating custody of a secret. The clock over the stove clicked once, a small mechanical throat clear. June stepped around the island, close enough that I could see the constellation of freckles on her left cheekbone, the ones I kiss when I can't think how to say sorry. I love you, she said, quiet, like smuggling something fragile through customs. So I'm asking. Don't show anyone. Don't keep digging. Some lies aren't meant to be found again. The sentence landed with the weight of something rehearsed. Not a spontaneous plea, but an old line taken down from a shelf. I felt the first real crack then, not in her, in me. Trust breaking isn't a shatter. It's a stretch that goes too far, fibers separating with a soft sigh. I wanted to ask 100 questions. Were you on that plane? Why would your name be there? Who were you then? Who are you now? But my mouth wouldn't shape them. Instead I said, were you in Halifax? No. Too fast. Then softer, I've never been. I could hear our refrigerator humming like a far-off generator. The citrus in the air had gone sharp. June reached past me and pulled the plug on the router, waited 10 seconds, plugged it back in. Habitual, economical, an old ritual of clearing the slate. Glitch, she said, not looking at me. Why are you acting like this? I asked, and hated the pleading edge in my voice. If it's nothing, then it's nothing. She pressed her lips together. For a second her face went completely blank, like a mask you tie on with a string. Then she reached up and touched my cheek. Her hand was warm, and in that touch was 1,000 Tuesdays in grocery lists and the way she steadies a ladder while I climb. I'm tired, she said. Please. Drop it. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. She took my silence and walked it down the hall. I listened to drawers open and close, measured the pauses. When she came back, she was holding a mug. She set it in front of me, chamomile, too much honey, the way I like it when I can't sleep. I stared into the steam, at the tiny planets of pollen drifting. The kindness of the gesture made me want to cry. It also made me want to smash the mug against the sink. Her phone buzzed on the counter, an unknown number. The screen lit up and, for the length of a breath, showed a contact name that wasn't a name at all, restricted. June glanced at it and let it ring out. When it stopped, we stood in the quiet and pretended that was normal. "Promise me," she said, softer now. "Please." I opened my mouth to try. Before I could, the phone buzzed again. This time she answered, put it to her ear, and said, cautious and smooth, "Hello?" The voice on the other end was thin with distance, male or female I couldn't tell. It said one word, a name I had never heard and will never forget. "Elise?" June's eyes slid to mine. Not panicked. Not surprised. Just tired. "Wrong number," she said to the phone, and hung up. The room was very, very quiet. My tea had gone cold. June set her palm against the router as if feeling for a heartbeat. "Please," she said again. "Don't make me choose." "Choose what?" I asked, but she was already turning away, already walking down the hall with that lighthouse gait, steady and far. I stood there with the name echoing in my skull, Elise, 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 like I was the one who had dialed it. I picked up her phone, thinking I'd see the call in recent. The log was blank. Not cleared. Blank, like nothing had ever been there at all. Cliffhanger: when I returned to my phone to finally delete the screenshot, the image was already gone, replaced by a gray square and a single line of text I hadn't written, content unavailable. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that gray box where the screenshot used to be, like the app itself had erased the evidence, or someone had. June's breathing was steady beside me, too even, the kind that sounds practiced. I kept waiting for her to move, to shift, to reach for me in her sleep the way she used to. She didn't. Around 3 a.m., I gave up pretending. I slid out of bed, careful not to wake her, and went to the living room. The moonlight from the street lamps sliced through the blinds in neat, pale bars. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and typed, Flight 237 passenger list. The page took forever to load. Maybe it was just my connection, or maybe I wanted it to stall. But when the text finally appeared, I felt that same cold pressure in my chest, the one that makes your pulse sound too close to your ears. There she was again. June Elise Corwin, 31, Seattle, Washington. I clicked her name. It led to a memorial page. The picture was smaller than the one I'd seen on the manifest, an older, a grainy photo of her at what looked like a beach. The smile was familiar but off somehow, like a note played half-flat. There were messages below the photo, digital flowers, strangers leaving kind words. "We miss you, June. Still can't believe you're gone. Rest easy, Elise." That last one froze me. Elise. The name from the phone call. The more I read, the less the words made sense. There was a post from someone named M, who'd written, "You did what you had to do." I understand now. It was dated only 2 weeks after the crash. I checked the author's profile. No photo, no real name, just an icon of a paper airplane. The account had been deleted years ago. I should have stopped. I should have gone back to bed, held my wife, believed her when she said it was all a mistake. But curiosity is a sickness, and I was too far gone. I pulled up public records. Death certificates. Hospital registries. Anything tied to Flight 237. Most of it was archived or redacted. But I found something odd in the Washington State database, a death certificate for June Elise Corwin, filed 5 days after the crash. Then, 2 weeks later, a hospital intake form for a Jane Corwin, same birthdate, same blood type. The address listed was a care facility in Portland that no longer exists. I stared at the screen, the timestamp blinking at me like an accusation. My wife had died on paper and been reborn 14 days later. The silence in the house felt too thick. I looked down the hall toward the bedroom door. Closed. No light leaking through. Something in me wanted to open it, to demand the truth right then. But another part of me, the smaller, wiser part, told me not to. Not yet. Instead, I dug deeper. Old news articles. Blogs. A Reddit thread full of conspiracy theories about Flight 237, government involvement, experimental cargo, classified passengers. I laughed at the absurdity, but one post stopped me cold. A user called Ocean Witness had written, "They said no one survived." That's not true. Someone did. I saw her at St. Mary's the week after the crash. She was terrified. The post had one reply before the thread was locked. A moderator comment. This account has been deactivated at the request of law enforcement. By then, the sun was starting to rise, that sickly, early morning light that makes everything look too real. June walked into the kitchen barefoot, wrapped in a sweater. Her eyes were red, but her voice was calm. "You're still looking, aren't you?" I didn't answer. She poured coffee, added cream, stirred it clockwise, the way she always does, exactly 3 turns. Watching her felt like watching an actor play my wife. Same lines, same gestures, but something missing underneath. "Why can't you just let it go?" she asked. "Because," I said quietly, "you died." Her hand froze on the mug. For a second, I thought she might cry, or laugh, or scream. But instead, she just looked at me with a kind of soft, exhausted pity. "Not everything buried is meant to stay dead," she said. And then she walked out, leaving the mug spinning slightly on the counter, a ring of cream swirling at the surface, a small, perfect storm. I sat there, staring at the open laptop. On the memorial page, someone had just added a new comment. "Stop digging." No username. No timestamp. Just those 2 words. And when I refreshed the page, the entire memorial disappeared. By the next morning, it wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was obsession. I told myself I was looking for the truth, but deep down I knew it was something darker. I wanted to catch her in a lie. I wanted proof that I wasn't losing my mind. June left early, before sunrise. She said she had errands in the city, her tone too casual, her smile too careful. I waited until I heard her car pull away before turning my laptop back on. The memorial page was gone, scrubbed from the internet. Even cached versions were empty. I tried everything: VPNs, archives, foreign mirrors. Nothing. It was like someone had vacuumed it out of existence. So I shifted to something concrete. Flight 237 had been investigated by the National Transportation Safety Board. Public record, right? I found a PDF, hundreds of pages of wreckage analysis, oceanic drift models, cause undetermined. But what caught me wasn't in the report itself. It was in the appendix, a list of items recovered from the crash site. Row 47, Seat C, wedding ring, gold, engraving partially visible, JE. Row 47, Seat B, no remains recovered. That's where her name had been on the manifest. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. Our marriage bands are simple gold, no engraving. I'd always thought June didn't want one because she liked things unmarked. But the thought wouldn't leave me. Had she already worn a ring once before? When I looked up her travel history again, everything had changed. The historic trips tab was blank. Not emptied, blank. The text box itself was gone, as if that function had never existed. I picked up my phone to call the airline support line, but froze. What would I even say? "Hi, I think my wife might have died in one of your crashes but is still somehow living with me?" Instead, I scrolled through my photos, looking for the screenshot. I knew it was gone, but I hoped maybe it had synced somewhere else. The backup folder showed nothing but static images of vacations, dinners, birthdays. I scrolled all the way to the bottom, to the first photos I'd ever saved. The oldest picture was from June's first birthday after we met: cake, candles, her laugh frozen mid-breath. But when I tapped to expand it, the metadata said it was taken 6 months before we met. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. For a second I thought it might be the airline. I answered. Static. Then, a voice, faint, distant. A woman's. "You shouldn't be doing this," she said. "Who is this?" "Please stop." "You're not supposed to." The line crackled, then went dead. I called back immediately. Disconnected. June texted 15 minutes later. Don't open the door if someone knocks. No explanation. No context. Just that. I didn't reply. I didn't have to, someone did knock. Softly. Once. Then again. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a gray suit, standing too still. He wasn't a cop. He didn't have that presence. More like a bureaucrat, polite, nondescript, the kind of man who could sit next to you on a train and vanish from your memory before you reached your stop. I didn't open the door. He waited a minute, maybe two, then slid something under the frame, a manila envelope, and walked away without looking back. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper. Passenger list, Flight 237. Corwin, June Elise, deceased. Corwin, Peter James, missing. My name. Not hers. I checked the top corner, official NTSB letterhead, dated 5 years ago. I sat there on the floor, that paper trembling in my hands, my pulse echoing in my skull. 5 years ago, she had died. And apparently, so had I. That's when the front door clicked. I looked up. June stood there, keys in hand, eyes wide. She saw the paper, saw my face, and for the first time since all of this began, she didn't look frightened. She looked resigned. You weren't supposed to see that, she said softly. And then, almost kindly. Not again. Not again. That's what she said, calm, quiet, like someone closing a door gently so it doesn't wake the baby. I couldn't move. I just sat there on the floor, that paper still trembling in my hands, reading the words over and over. Missing. As if I'd once existed, and then stopped. June crouched down in front of me. Her eyes were softer than they'd been in days, but there was something behind them now, a kind of weary calculation, like she was mapping out how far this would go before she lost control of it. Tell me what this is, I said. My voice sounded small. Tell me why my name is on a government document from a crash I was never on. She didn't answer. She just reached out and took the paper from me, folding it once, neatly, like a letter she meant to keep. You weren't supposed to find that, she said again. I live here, June. You left it under the door. She shook her head. No. They did. I felt the first chill of real fear then, not just confusion or suspicion, but the cold, surgical certainty that I was inside something much bigger than I understood. Who's they? I asked. She looked toward the window, as if expecting someone to be watching. People who made mistakes, she said. People who tried to fix them. Start making sense. June stood, pacing the length of the living room. After the crash, there were survivors. Not many. Maybe 3. But the story wasn't supposed to have survivors. It was easier to say everyone died. Clean. Controlled. My heart thudded. You're saying you survived? Her eyes met mine, sharp now, almost pleading. I didn't survive. I disappeared. There's a difference. I wanted to argue, to call it delusion, but the look in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't madness. It was memory. She sat down across from me, her hands folded around her knees. There was something on that flight, Peter. Something we weren't supposed to see. What? She shook her head. I don't know. Cargo, maybe. People talked about it before takeoff, military contractors, government types, the kind who carry themselves like everyone else should disappear around them. Then the explosion, and the water. After that, it's fragments. Light, sound, voices. I swallowed. My throat felt raw. And me? How do I fit into this? June hesitated. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, you were supposed to be on that flight. The world tilted. What are you talking about? They were expecting you. She said it like a confession, not an accusation. You had a ticket. A seat. I wasn't even on the manifest until the night before the flight. I switched identities with you at the gate. I just stared. That's insane. She smiled sadly. Maybe. But you're holding proof. My mind spun through every possibility: witness protection, espionage, some bizarre administrative mix-up. None of it made sense. Why would I have been on that flight? Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp, searching. You really don't remember, do you? Remember what? June's voice dropped to a whisper. The hospital. The night before you disappeared. I've never. Yes, you have. She leaned forward. You told me something, Peter. Something about your job, about the contracts you were reviewing. You said you were scared. You said people were watching you. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I couldn't remember ever saying those words, but the way she looked at me, I knew she wasn't lying. You think I'm the reason you vanished? I asked. I think you were part of something you didn't understand, she said. And when it went bad, someone made sure to erase both of us. Outside, a car rolled past slowly, too slowly. June's eyes followed it. Then she stood and pulled the blinds shut. We don't have time for this, she said. You need to choose what kind of truth you actually want. I want all of it. She laughed once, sharp, bitter. No. You really don't. I stood too, my pulse hammering. You think I was on that flight. You think I was erased. But I'm here, June. I've been here. She turned, meeting my gaze. Are you sure? For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Because in that instant, I wasn't. Not entirely. Something in her voice, the quiet certainty, the fatigue of someone who's lived through the same moment too many times, made the ground shift beneath me. Then she looked toward the door, and I saw it, the shadow of 2 feet under the crack, motionless. Someone was standing outside. June whispered, they found us. The knock came again, soft, polite, patient. The knock was almost gentle, 3 slow taps, like someone testing if we were home. But it didn't sound like a neighbor or a delivery. It sounded deliberate. June froze. I could see the pulse in her neck. She mouthed, "Don't move." The knock came again, followed by silence so deep I could hear the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock. I took 1 step toward the door. June caught my wrist. Her grip was iron. Please, she whispered. Don't. Who is it? I asked. She shook her head. Not who. What? The doorknob turned just a fraction, then stopped. Whoever was out there didn't try again. A shadow slid away from the frosted glass panel. June waited a full minute before exhaling. They won't stop now, she said quietly. You opened the door when you looked up that flight. I stared at her. What the hell are you talking about? They? Who are they? She didn't answer. She walked into the bedroom, pulled an old duffel bag from the closet, and began stuffing it with clothes, her movements mechanical and practiced. This is insane, I said. You think someone's coming for us because I looked at a passenger list? She zipped the bag halfway and looked up at me. I don't think. I know. I didn't recognize her then, not the woman who made grocery lists in pastel ink, who watched documentaries and fell asleep halfway through. This June moved with precision, with the steady calm of someone who'd done this before. I need you to trust me, she said. Pack what you can't live without. I laughed, a short, hollow sound. You mean my sanity? Her expression didn't change. You don't remember any of it, do you? Remember what? The hospital, she said again, softly. Before the crash. You were supposed to meet someone, a man from your company. You told me it was about classified shipments. You said you found something you shouldn't have. Then you disappeared for 2 days. When you came back, you told me we needed to leave Seattle. You said you'd arranged everything, new names, new documents. My stomach tightened. That's not possible. I've never. You did, she said simply. And when that plane went down, they got what they wanted, a perfect ending. You, dead. Me, dead. No questions left to ask. I wanted to shout, to deny it, but the words stuck. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, a door cracked open, a flash of something I couldn't quite name, sterile white light, the echo of voices, the smell of iodine. I don't. June stepped closer, her eyes glistening. You don't have to believe me. But you have to leave with me. Tonight. Go where? Somewhere they can't find us. She slung the duffel over her shoulder and moved toward the back door. I stayed rooted to the floor. June, I said, this doesn't make sense. If this is true, why tell me now? Because, she said, her voice breaking, you started looking again. And once you start, they track you. She pushed open the door to the garage. The cold night air spilled in, carrying the smell of rain and motor oil. We have to go. But I didn't move. June, if this is real, if they're watching, why are you still here? Why didn't you just run when you had the chance? She turned back, her silhouette framed in the doorway. Because I thought maybe this time would be different. This time? Her voice cracked. Because the last time you found out, you didn't make it. I felt something drop in my stomach. What are you saying? She didn't answer. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, the plastic casing scuffed and worn. You gave me this before the crash, she said. You said it would explain everything. But you made me promise never to open it unless they found us again. She placed it in my hand. You said if I ever saw your name on the list, it meant you'd been erased. I looked down at the flash drive. It was labeled in tiny, faded handwriting P. J.C., do not connect online. The weight of it was ridiculous, a few grams of plastic and metal, and yet it felt like holding the fuse to something enormous. June's voice trembled. They'll be back soon. If you want to know the truth, plug it in. But once you do, there's no going back. The distant sound of tires on wet pavement grew louder, headlights flashing briefly across the curtains. She turned toward me, tears brimming now. Please, Peter. Decide. And for the first time since this began, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just scared of them. She was scared of me. I didn't decide so much as give in. I dug out my old work laptop, the one I never synced after we moved, and killed the Wi-Fi, pulled the Ethernet, even shut off Bluetooth like superstition might count as security. My hand shook as I slid the flash drive in. A small light blinked, green, like an eyelid. The screen populated with 3 folders. /manifest. /invoices. /witness. June stood behind me, arms wrapped around herself. Don't open anything connected to the web, she whispered, and I nodded, like the act of nodding could keep us unseen. I clicked invoices first. PDFs, dozens of them, all stamped with a logo I recognized and didn't, my old company's subcontractor, Aurelius Logistics. Dates clustered around the month before the crash. Line items that sounded like nonsense: medical isotopes, sensor arrays, biocontainment shells. Shipped to Halifax, St. Mary's Receiving. The word biocontainment lodged in my throat. I opened Manifest. A spreadsheet filled the screen of flight numbers, cargo weights, initials, and a column labeled handler. My initials appeared 10 times. PJC. Each entry linked to a scanned signature. Mine. You said you didn't remember, June murmured. I don't, I said, but the letters on the screen looked like my own bones. Finally, witness. Inside, a single video file, if_you're_watching_this. MP4. I glanced at June. She shook her head once, tiny, helpless. I double-clicked. The video stuttered into life, a cramped motel room, a mirror reflecting a man sitting on the bed, talking to the camera. Me. Older by a season of fear, unshaven, eyes red. If you find this, the video me said, voice hoarse, it means the plane went down and they chose the simple ending. He glanced toward the door like he heard footsteps. Aurelius isn't logistics. It's cover. The cargo isn't equipment, it's people. 4 of them. Off-books transfers. St. Mary's is a corridor. And Peter, he leaned closer, and for a second I felt him looking through the screen at me. You are not a mistake in this story. You're the delivery. The file cut to static. June's phone vibrated on the counter. One text, no number, open the door. June snatched her phone off the counter, silencing it before the second buzz. Her fingers trembled, her eyes darting toward the window. They're not supposed to text, she whispered. I was still staring at the laptop, the static frozen on the screen. What does that mean, I'm the delivery? June shook her head, backing away like the words themselves were dangerous. You weren't supposed to know. They wiped everything, your records, your memory. I thought it worked this time. This time? I asked. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. She took a step toward me. You were carrying something out of Halifax before the crash. They needed it contained. And you, she stopped, her voice splintering, you volunteered. Volunteered for what? To disappear. The room tilted. The walls felt closer. You're saying I chose this? June nodded once, her face pale, almost luminous in the blue glow of the laptop. You didn't trust anyone else. You said if it got out, too many would die. I went on that flight to stop you, to take it instead. She looked like she might break right there. But then the plane went down, and we both vanished. And when I found you again, you didn't remember. The words barely fit in my head. My mind kept folding them back on themselves. So what's in me, June? What did I deliver? The knock came again. Louder this time. Not polite anymore. She turned toward me, eyes wet but fierce. They're not here for me this time. The pounding grew heavier, measured, deliberate, like someone driving nails into the frame. June's breath hitched. They can't come in unless you open it, she whispered. I stared at the door, my reflection quivering in the brass knob. What happens if I don't? She looked at me then, not with fear, but sorrow. Then they'll make you. The air felt charged, humming, as if the house itself was holding its breath. The laptop screen flickered once, then filled with lines of code, running on its own. I hadn't touched anything. Upload initiated. Source, device PJC/Aurelius. June lunged forward, slamming the laptop shut. They're pulling the drive. From where? From you. My mouth went dry. What the hell does that mean? She grabbed my wrist and pressed her fingers against my pulse, hard. Listen to me, she said. You were the transport. Whatever was in that cargo, data, research, DNA, I don't even know they encoded it. Into you. You were the carrier. The word echoed inside my skull, carrier. I stumbled backward, vision flickering with afterimages from the video, my own face saying, you're the delivery. The front door handle twisted, slow and certain. June's voice dropped to a whisper. You didn't survive the crash, Peter. You were rebuilt after it. The latch clicked open. And for the first time, I understood why she looked at me like that, half love, half terror. She wasn't hiding from me. She'd been hiding me. The door opened, and the light from outside bled into the room, not sunlight, not headlights, but something pale and cold, like hospital fluorescence. A silhouette stepped through, the man in the gray suit. No badge. No weapon. Just calm. Peter, he said softly, as if greeting an old patient. You were never meant to wake up. June moved between us, trembling. You promised he'd be left alone. The man tilted his head. He broke protocol. Again. He looked at me, eyes almost kind. You've done this before, you know. Every time, you reach for the truth. Every time, she tries to save you. June's voice cracked. He doesn't remember. That's the point, the man said. He isn't built to. I took a step back. What are you talking about? What am I? The man smiled, thin and tired. A containment vessel. A delivery system with a conscience. He glanced at June. She fell in love with what she was supposed to destroy. June's hands shook. He's not a thing. The man sighed. Then tell him what happens when he remembers. She turned to me, eyes bright with tears. The crash wasn't an accident, Peter. You triggered it to stop them from using you. And when they rebuilt you, I thought maybe I could keep you. The air between us trembled. I kept you safe as long as I could, she whispered. But they always find us. I looked at her, the woman who'd been my anchor, my home, my lie, and realized she was crying not out of guilt, but grief. She pressed something into my hand, the flash drive. Run, she said. One last time. The man reached forward. The light surged. And then, nothing. No sound. No time. Just her voice, faint and close, like a dream you can almost touch. If the person you love built a new life to escape you, would you still want her back? End.